that right?
Yep. All right, so we've got 2 more topics just to run through now. Firstly, we're just going to look at, we get lots of questions about the options for data capture through all the website portals and apps that are popping up. So I'll just give a quick summary of that, and then Zen's going to show us some stuff. So this is just a zoom in of that slide Matt showed before of all the different sorts of portals that are popping up that people are putting their data into. Once again, you don't have to digest it all. It's just that some are managed by Juna and some are managed externally. And there's lots of them. And there's more than this, and they're coming up everywhere. So, you know, I'm sure you all know. Just quickly, in case there's some newbies that haven't been involved in any, I'll just pop through a few. So there's a couple of Goanna ones, and there's another, there's a KI Goanna one too, isn't there? Yep. So if you're looking for a spot to put your Goanna data, you'll get confronted with these different ones if you start searching the web, and the KI one. So it's good to know. It's good to be able to know by looking at the front screen what one's the right one for you, and for people to understand the data flows. So anyway, this one's one through Discovery Circle that uses ALA BioCollect system. This one's just a SurveyMonkey form from Eyre Peninsula, the more simple one. There's the SAMDB ALA field data capture portal that's been around for a while that looks at birds and bats. They've got a few projects in that. I think they've got some other projects they've been adding lately too. Yep, we could have a whole session on how amazing that is. This is a really good portal that's been working. And these tallies are a bit old too, so they're getting more records in all the time. So that's a really good one. And they get the thumbs up because they get the thumbs up over here because they've got up front on the screen for users to realise that the data's managed and endorsed by Juna. And they understand then, I don't need to send this data to BDBSA as well. You know, it's going into this portal and that's feeding into the Juna systems. So that's very good. Frogwatch is another one that's an independent portal. They had lots of money behind them, so they were able to go off independent and customise exactly what they need. That data, in theory, flows back into Juna, but we haven't seen any yet. So this is often the, you know, a point to look at is the ongoing data management. And then BirdLife's a externally managed portal that's around. All right, so there's pros and cons for web portals, of course. Provides a simple way of capturing your data. Can make fieldwork quite efficient if you're just putting it straight in out in the field. If you've got mobile apps connected to your portals and your apps. Can allow for more accurate spatial capture and time entry capture, automated from your photos or from your location if you've got a mobile app. It means you can customise it to get engagement from your target audience. Some of them allow access to external people outside of Juna as well. And of course they look a lot more spunkier than a BDBSA form. So we all love them and we can't resist them, and they'll be around to stay. But there's just a few issues that can pop up with them. All the many options obviously leads to confusion for users, so keep that in mind and try and help the users to work out what you're setting up and how it differs from all the other options they have out there. That's why we're keeping those running lists of all the options and trying to advise. But it's all about picking the one that suits your needs the best and that works for your project, and then keeping your data management in mind. The other problem is when we start setting up these portals, you know, you've got your scientific officers out there. These are good fun things to play with sometimes. They can spend hours and days and months setting up these portals, and it might not be the most efficient way of, you know, spending resources. They might need ongoing program support, need admin for log-ons, people logging on to be new users for these portals, data validation, which is an issue regardless of however you're capturing your data, you've got data validation issues. And then a significant one, data transfer. So duplicating all these over and over throughout the department, you know, can be high on time and money resources. So just keep that in mind and try and make some efficiencies. and that's why I've invited Zen along. But before he talks, just quickly, because these have been popping over the last few years, we've put together some protocols that we try to introduce people to if they want to go down their independent setting up their independent portals. And if you follow these, it'll just, they're basically principles that come out of the MEC document, but it will just help your portal to be successful. Okay, so register your project on BDBSA. You need a portal administrator that runs with that project and hands it over to someone else if they leave that region and doesn't just get left hanging. You need to think about collecting what fields you're asking for in that portal and whether you can add a couple extra just to make sure that record's going to be useful to a wide range of users and not just maybe your individual needs, so the minimum data set. Include a moderation flag because you've got all these random records coming in, and vetting is an important step in that we need to keep track of. That badge up front that lets people know the data is managed and endorsed by SA Junior, or even that it's feeding into BDBSA, just something reassuring people and yourself and reminding yourself where you're going to put it. A time frame for your project. These things don't have to sit around forever, lost on the web. So it's good to have an endpoint or a review point when you decide whether this portal should be ongoing, because there are a few out there that can look bad for Junior if they're just sitting there not being maintained. And get yourself a bit of a MEC chart going with some help from us if you need to show the data flow of this portal, what process is going to get it into a corporate system once you've done your validations. All right, I'll hand over to Zen from the information branch because he's got some good pilot projects that he's been working on that he's going to show us that might be of interest to you all.
Thanks, Helen. So first of all, I've heard super tables mentioned and other spatial data. So who is familiar with ArcGIS and spatial software? Okay, most of you. That's good. So I suppose what you might not be aware of is very much Esri's new direction in terms of delivering and supporting ArcGIS. So probably in the past, we've very much concentrated on the delivery part of it. And I suppose what I'm here today to talk about is the new ability in Esri's new world to collect data. So just to give a brief overview of sort of where Esri's coming from now is that very much they're looking, while we've all been aware of desktop ArcGIS and ArcMap and ArcCatalog, what there is a heavy emphasis now on are both web mapping and devices and viewing maps on devices. So who's heard of ArcGIS Online? Okay, and Portal for ArcGIS? Yeah. So obviously there's probably ArcGIS Online you probably hear about more because it's out there and discussed and by Esri in particular more readily. Portal for ArcGIS is the ability for organisations to, in effect, host their own kind of ArcGIS Online environment. So Portal is hosted internally for state government. So it's accessed by multiple departments, including DUNA. So that's what you see there in the middle. And Portal is where you can put up web applications and web maps and share information more readily. So very much the new model is about publishing information and having users with different access using the information either as just a viewer, or you can publish the information or you can edit it. There's different kind of permissions across the new model. So what we're seeing now, and what we're very much, the Enterprise GIS team have been trialling a few applications for different user groups inside the department, and it is at this stage very much a trial period that we're just trying to understand how we can implement this throughout the department and how different business areas can use it. So what we do have out there at the moment are some mobile application pilot projects. So these pilots go across different applications in the new Esri stack. The two main ones we've been using are Collector for ArcGIS and Survey 123. And probably Collector more than Survey 123. Survey, we've just been probably the last couple months more exploring the capabilities of Survey 123. Explorer for ArcGIS is very much, you could say, for those of you who might be familiar with ArcReader, it's very much an ArcReader online, in effect. So it just gives you the ability to create maps and share them, and do that using the portal environment versus compared to doing it using the ArcMap environment. Collector is one. It is a configurable app. It's downloadable via your Apple App Store or your Android application downloader. What do they call that one? Google Play, that's the one. So both applications are downloadable via those kind of environments, and they, given the access by us in the Enterprise GIS team, you're able to use these applications to collect information. They are deployable across all kinds of devices, iPhones, iPads, and Android devices. So within our team, we've got them deployed across all those three and have tested and using them in the pilot kind of stage across those three. So a couple ones that I'll just give pretty much just some screenshots of are ones that we've developed for different business areas. And the first one, because it is sort of more specific to what you guys, the topic of today is around BDBSA collection. So I did have set up in the and it's been used for the last over a month now by an employee of ours, Joe Allen, and he's doing some bird surveys out in the region. So what he gave me was a template of the information he wanted to collect, and in this case, the way it works is we've set up an SDE layer, and you configure that layer as you need, and as suited Joel for this particular purpose, and then you configure the map in Portal, and then you deploy that to your device. I think Joel's mainly using iPhones to collect the information. And the way it works is essentially as a sort of a check-in, check-out kind of way. So you have the map which is connected to your portal. So as many of you are aware, there are connectivity issues and in the regions, and when you go out to collect information. So what this does is the ability to take information offline while you're in an office with connectivity. You take the information offline, you go out in the field, you collect it. When you're back in range of connectivity, you check that back in. So at the moment, it's working, the collection data set, you might say, the points are being collected and stored within SDE, but with Portal, it doesn't have to be SDE. We're managing it in that way in this case because it just gives you some more functionality in terms of some date formatting, and so you can do some stuff in the database when it's checked back in, which formats things in the appropriate format for BDBSA. So we've just simplifying a few things there.
So when you say not SDE, what are the other options?
It's basically storing it in ArcGIS Portal, and it's got its own back-end database. So you don't store it in the enterprise database. And you very much in that environment, you don't see the back-end data. Yeah. It's all sort of a web interface, and you just sort of see names and what they are. You don't actually see the data.
So SDE sounds preferable, generally.
It may be, yeah, depending on what it is. If it's a large project and it's going to be running for a while, yes. And if it's, but sometimes, so what we've done at the moment is we've rolled this out and to all the regional GIS users, so they've got access to it, and they're doing some, you could say, some playing. They're trying to work out how they can deploy it in the regions and work it out in the regions. So for those guys, it might be quick and easy just to do something very quick. And you don't have to, say, send a request to me to put it in SDE and go through all of that. You might just want to be able to go out there quickly, do something quickly, bring it back in and analyse it. And that's what Portal gives you the ability to do. So this one on screen is one we've been working with fire management around weed control. And that's sort of what you see there is kind of the interface that you see. I think that's coming from a iPad, I think. And in this case also what it gives the ability to do is do things like joins and relates to tables. So you might be able to click on a point and then get up the related information, and that's all happens in the field. So yeah, we've been working with the business in terms of devices and capturing it. This one very much is pilot/production kind of thing. It's sort of moved through the stage, but they are using it pretty readily, and it has actually evolved into a Survey 123 application. I think that's all from me. So that's a very brief overview of the direction in terms of collecting and, well, even viewing information in the ArcGIS environment, and the fact that that's changing. Now, we've had brief discussions with Helen, and probably in the new year we'll sit down and work out if we can set up a template that can be used for the majority of BDBSA collection situations. There is a fair bit to work through. The thing to note with this new environment, it is based on a named user. What that means from an Esri point of view is every named user costs dollars. So and to collect information, you can't have a generic user. So you can't just have a generic user and pass that around. It does have to be tied to a person and an employee. So it's something that that's why it's very much in a pilot stage. So the more users it's rolled out to, the more cost there is for the region or the group rolling it out. So it is very much in the pilot stages, but that gives you sort of a brief overview of where we're at with these kind of collection applications in the Esri ArcGIS environment. So I'm not sure how long I went for there, but
that's fantastic. Perhaps one question, if there's any.
You're worried about costs. What's the cost per user?
we haven't worked that out yet. we've just signed up there's a new ELA across across state government in effect. We don't know what that cost per user will be yet.
Are we able to change the name of the users?
Sorry?
Are we able to change the name of the users on a regular basis? Like,
Change the name? Yes. So effectively, as employees say leave the department, you can remove them, and then that named user, number becomes available again.
but it has to be an employee in the department.
It does. It can be contractors. That's things we all have to work through in terms of how it works with external contractors and that kind of situation.
I think we'll just leave the questions there. I think so. I mean, what Zen's saying is that it's the new world. Obviously, Esri's going in that place. The state government is grappling with this new enterprise license agreement rather than separate licenses, in business units or even agencies with Esri. So I guess that it's yet another avenue for collecting data. Let's add it on to that great big list that we had before. It's not going to replace all of them. It's going to sit there on the list, and it really is important to consider what your specific needs are and weigh up all of those issues about timeliness and access and complexity and the number of users all together. But it's great to know that at a corporate level we've got some sort of device-based collection apps happening, and I guess things that have to happen quickly and will still happen quickly, but we know that as we come over the longer term, this will probably take over in a more official sense.
So for those who have come out from the regional GIS officers do have access to the portal and access to be able to create maps and data and publish information to go out. I know I've been working with Darcy the last month or so. I know he's created and is testing. So we're just all trying to work out how this new world fits into our business processes.
Cool, thanks a lot, Zen. We'll move on to the next bit, third-party data access.
Yeah, I was just going to finish off on that. So the options Zen was talking about at this stage are looking like an internal option. There's still a few out there I know that are interested in engaging the community with citizen science type projects. So there's still the option out there of like BioCollect that Atlas of Living Australia have put out. So that's a tool that Atlas of Living Australia have where you can set up your own data capture portal. So that's another option. It's great to have corporate support if those limitations work for you. Some of the people in the room I know are having some issues with BioCollect, but they seem confident that they will be fixed soon, and that they're not impacting all the BioCollect projects. So if you haven't got any funding, BioCollect's worth investigating as an option for that as well. And BioCollect has a mobile option as well, which apparently is fairly basic and limited, or not fairly basic, but the code that they use to do that is open source, and there's some projects like Discovery Circle that are basing their mobile apps on the BioCollect code and just enhancing it to match their project. So there's options there that ALA are happy to work with, but they're a good starting point, BioCollect, for apps where you need external people to be putting their records in. All right. Another MEC chart. You have to go away from this session feeling comfortable with MEC charts. Okay, because they're nothing new. We've all got flow charts that we do at times. I've got millions through every book for the last 20 years, but this is just a great tool to start bringing them in line with each other with some similar formatting so that we can all be on the same page. So don't worry about the arrows here at this stage. I was just going to sort of let you know the current state of play with third-party data and how we're trying to get access to Juna staff to third-party data. So basically most of the data that is managed by Juna, biological data managed by Juna, is housed in the BWSA PROD or the Adelaide Herbarium database, AdHerb. But there's a lot of good and valuable South Australian data that is managed outside of Juna, over in the cloud, just crowdsourced portals and stuff sitting out there. that we want to get access to junior staff for, and also other valuable institutions like BirdLife, South Australian Museum, which contribute, greatly to our knowledge. So we need to sort of keep the data flowing and giving access and bringing it all together for you guys to be able to use. And that's what gets us up every morning. But it's a forever changing environment and it's a tricky one. All right, so over this side, I've just got some of the delivery options as well, which we'll just look at as we work through the flow. That one? How do I enlarge it?
Just go up to the GIS icons.
That looks good. All right, so the current state of play with third data management, which some of you might know, or we try to keep this sort of in the background. You don't really have to know. You just want to go into the Aegis environment and see BWSA super table, and then you want to see third-party super table and be able to turn that on and mix the data in and see, oh yeah, there's the museum data, and you want it to be current and fresh and formatted the same and easy. So that's where we try to head. At the moment, data that's being managed outside of Juna, some of it feeds into ALA, so that's a handy tool for us, obviously, having data all coming into one spot to grab rather than us going to, 50 third-party institutions or areas and trying to bring that data in and reformat ourselves. So the ALA model's pretty good for us when it works. So currently we have an extract of all South Australia data that's not Juna data that's available that we've brought in that we just keep in our own internal storage environment, and currently that's accessible to users through contacting us and through different direct access tools into those tables. Okay, it's not available through the Aegis layers yet. We also have, if you've been around for a while, you know that we have some old extracts from institutions like the BirdLife, and South Australian Museum that have actually been dumped into BWSA, but they're getting quite dated. They're about 10 years old. So we're not pursuing that model of trying to grab other people's data and put it into our system and manage it. We've come to it's evolved over the years that it's best managed in their institutions and just fed as frequently and accurately as we can out through our delivery systems. Okay, so that's how it sort of currently stands. And third-party data is, you need to contact the person who's extracted that third-party data, usually us, but sometimes other business groups, to get access to it. So what we're proposing and the path we're heading down is that ALA is still a great avenue when it works. So if all the fields that you need from that third party are being delivered to ALA and it's being delivered to us accurately and not being denatured in any way, like coordinates downgraded or something, then ALA is a great format. I mean, they give it to us in consistent format, consistent taxonomy, and makes our life easier. However, it's not going to be the case for all projects. So some of them will be getting direct still from the housing environment, or direct from the institution with appropriate licensing when we need, and bringing that into the one storage environment within Juna, which might take the form of Oracle tables or Aegis environment, where it can be processed before it's delivered out as what we're proposing at this stage would be like a third-party super table layer. So you'll be able to turn that on, same formatting, South Australian taxonomy. And along the processing path, we can we'll do some enhancements like, well, as I said, matching the taxonomy to South Australian taxonomy, and also some recent projects have required matching, like taking it to the next level of some subspecies enhancements on the taxonomy, and also adding like flags so that, like, if there's some common themes that users want to know about this data, like is it institution managed or is it just from citizen science projects, which are still very valuable, but you may want to treat them differently. So we're proposing like to make that obvious in the super tables by having a flag that says this is institution sourced or this is crowdsourced. So that sort of enhancements can happen in the Dune environment before it's fed out. Most of this third-party data would only be available through the internal delivery tools, unless the third party are happy and keen for us to be the source of delivering it out to the public. So sometimes there's data sets that, like Birds SA might not have the facilities to get it out, so they might say, can you manage our data and feed it out, or can you house our data and feed it out through nature maps, or feed it onto ALA for us on our behalf. All right. Now, super table, if anyone's used that, they're aware that often it's summary data. So some business groups need some more accurate fields or things that aren't delivered through super table. So there'll always be this option of direct access tools that you can use, like your Microsoft Access front end, or custom Aegis layers that you might want created for your business needs, so that you can get that third-party data. Like people can use it for general use, but you can use it for your specific needs. And the BRUV group are using that for the marine group for their BRUV data, and they work closely with Tasmanian Uni and stuff, so that's sort of a model that they can follow, that we're working down with that path with them. And people interested in BirdLife data, they're one of our key institutions that we work with over the years, so they've got a licence signed by us sitting in front of them, so fingers crossed they'll have that back to us soon, and then we'll be able to get access to a lot of their project data too that Duna people feed into, and not just their Atlas data that they send to Atlas of Living Australia, not just their opportune sort of records, but actually all the project data as well that we feed to them, and with more fields than they give to ALA too. So, and also not denatured, because currently anything we get from BirdLife through ALA is denatured, so we need to get. This licence allows us to get it for in its accurate form. All right. Now I was just going to show you one of the data sets we're working on. One of the third-party data sets we've been working on for over the last few months with the Threatened Species Project and the FIRE group have both needed museum and BirdLife accurate, up-to-date data matched to taxonomy. So that's currently sitting in this Duna storage environment that's accessible to other business groups if they need it. And it would almost actually be delivered out as a spatial layer by now, except that we're waiting on that BirdLife licence so we can actually deliver accurate coordinates in the spatial layer and not just the denatured ones. So it's pretty close to being delivered out there. So this is just a slide that shows all the records that have been improved to a subspecies level, that have been enhanced to a subspecies level through lots of hard work from Meg over there, and some funding from FIRE and lots of work with Sharon's project on threatened species in the regions. So I don't think the colours matter too much. It just shows that we did this with the Bird Atlas, the historic Bird Atlas data, the current Bird Atlas data we got from ALA that is a bit denatured, and the museum, up-to-date museum data we got from ALA. And as an example, the striated thornbill, we're getting this data in from Atlas of Living Australia, with some people putting it in like at the binomial level, just the species level. Some people load their data sets at the subspecies level. So when you get it from ALA, you get a download. It's a bit of a mix. Takes a bit of processing by each user to work out, to make it ready for their needs. So Meg's been doing some improvements on this data set, and where possible, where the subspecies are clearly defined, we've been updating the records so that users will have the subspecies relevant for their region. When they search for that subspecies, they'll get all the records. They won't be excluding all the binomial, the records that are only to species level. That often might be a large part of your data set. So it just takes some of that knowledge away, like doesn't require the user to have so much knowledge on what they're asking for. So obviously the main problem with this is that subspecies don't always stick to their proper region that they're meant to be in. There's a lot of overlap, which drives Meg insane, and it's even worse for plants. So it's just being done when it can, and there's an audit trail, so you always know what that data came in at, and it's flagged as being presumed to be this subspecies, because we're very cautious about making any assumptions or changing data, without being able to track it. And subspecies is always a bit of a, do your best with that. So we're only reassigning records that are clearly in their zone. If there's an overlap area, then those records can't be reassigned, they're just left there. But it's just an example of how the data can be improved so that every user doesn't have to do this themselves. They can grab the improved third-party data layer and turn it on. These could obviously be applied to the super table records as well, the BDBSA records, which we have been doing as we go. Yep. So all right. I don't think I have many more topics, but anyone got some other third-party questions that they're wondering about that weren't covered then?